Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Melissa and I'm a nursing student. Okay, so if you see a little furry thing in the background running around, my dog insisted on being here. I'm filming in my guest room. If you've been watching my videos, you can probably see that I've been moving around to different areas of my house, and I'm just kind of testing which location looks best. Also, it is the afternoon. I just got off of work and the sun is starting to go down. So I apologize if this video is not super well lit. I'm going to try to make it short and keep it short. Hopefully the information in this video will exceed or be more important than like the aesthetics of the video, because that's just kind of not my thing, obviously. So I want to get right into the topic of today's video, and basically today's video is going to be about whether you should go to a traditional university, so a 4-year college, or a 2-year college, like a community college, in order to become a registered nurse. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be referring to the 4-year university as BSN, and that could go under a traditional 4-year nursing program, or it can also apply to the accelerated BSN. So I am actually attending Chamberlain University, which is an accelerated nursing program. I am not a registered nurse and I do not have a degree in nursing. Chamberlain's program is 3 years. You can finish it in a little bit less than 3 years. You can look at my previous videos to figure out what all of that is about. But Chamberlain is a 3-year accelerated BSN program. And for the purpose of today's video, that will be included anytime that I refer to a BSN, which is a bachelor's in nursing. And then on the other side of that, anytime that I refer to an ADN, which is an associate's degree in nursing, that will be under the assumption that you're going to a 2-year college, so a community college, and getting your associate's degree in nursing at the end of that 2-year program. So the topic of today's video, or what I'm going to be talking about in this video, is it worth it, or should you go to a 2-year program, typically a community college, to obtain your associate's degree in nursing, versus should you go to a 4-year university to obtain your bachelor's in nursing? So an ADN versus a BSN. Is it worth it, or should you go to community college and obtain an ADN, an associate's degree in nursing? So the short answer is yes. I do think that going to a 2-year college or a community college and obtaining your ADN is worth it. I think it's a good idea, and I think that if that is something that you want to do, you should definitely do it. The long answer, of course, is what this video is going to be about, and my long answer is not necessarily yes, but it really is, it depends. So both routes ultimately do kind of lead to the same end result. Both routes, whether you get your bachelor's degree in nursing or whether you get your associate's degree in nursing, you will be eligible at the end to sit for the NCLEX exam and ultimately become a registered nurse. However, there are differences between the two routes and the two types of institutions. So while doing research, I did find out myself, because I did not know this, associate's degrees, since they are the condensed 2 years, associate's degrees do typically focus heavily on nursing skills and nursing practice. So when you enter into these community colleges or these 2-year institutions, typically they do put a heavy focus or a main focus on nursing skills, things that you're going to be doing out in the real world, practical skills and practical application, which is a very good thing. With most BSN programs, what I've found is that although they do obviously focus heavily on practical skills, just like the ADN programs, they will also often focus on other skills, like communications, building interpersonal relationships, taking leadership courses. I can't speak for all schools because Chamberlain is the only school that I have attended for nursing, but Chamberlain really does put a very heavy emphasis on cultural competencies. So in pretty much all of my classes, we do pay a lot of attention to the fact that we're going to be dealing with different ethnicities, different cultures, different age groups, and how to be respectful of each one. We also learn different leadership skills, different interpersonal communication skills. So even though, of course, there is a heavy focus on the practical side of nursing and the skills, there is also a lot of that either managerial training or just training on how to interact with your patients on a different level. And I cannot speak to community colleges. I'm sure that there are many programs out there that do that, but when I did my research, that was what I saw to be the main difference. Community colleges do typically tend to focus on classes that are strictly related to nursing practice, while BSNs, of course, you're looking at traditionally 2 years versus 4 years, and that additional 2 years for BSN programs, they do require you to take other courses that focus on these different areas. So ultimately, whether you decide to go to a community college and get your ADN or a four-year university and get your BSN, I think that it is important to consider a number of different factors. Money is a really big thing, and I think that I've said that in all of my videos where I talk about whether you should or should not go to Chamberlain or whether it's a good school. I think Chamberlain is an amazing school. So far, I have had an amazing experience. However, the biggest con or the biggest negative aspect of Chamberlain is how expensive it is. It is a 4-year, well, it's a 3-year program, but it is a traditional university. It is a private university. And the full cost of tuition for Chamberlain in my area, I go to the Tyson's Corner campus in Virginia, but it is $90,000. Now, of course, that cost can fluctuate depending on if you transfer in with credits or not, but ultimately, if you're going into Chamberlain with no credits and you're doing the program in its entirety from start to finish, it does cost about $90,000. And I know that some campuses are a little bit less than that. Some campuses are a little bit more than that. But I think the lowest is probably like $85,000. The highest is somewhere around $95,000, but that's the ballpark. So that is very expensive. Obviously, with community college, it is significantly cheaper. It's a fraction of the cost of Chamberlain. So Chamberlain is expensive because it is a private institution, but even if I were to have gone to a public school or a state school to get my BSN, I still would have been paying at least $60,000 versus community college. Even though you're not getting your bachelor's degree, you're getting an associate's degree, it's a fraction of the cost and you will be leaving with significantly less student debt, significantly less loans, or depending on your financial situation, you may be able to pay out of pocket a lot easier than you would be at a 4-year institution. So just from the cost aspect, I do think that it is definitely a wiser financial decision to go and get your ADN versus a BSN. However, a major thing to consider, at least in my area, is whether or not you will find the job that you want. Once you become a nurse, for the most part, you will always have a job. That is one thing. You will definitely have job security no matter which route that you take, whether you become a ADN nurse or a BSN nurse, or a nurse with their ADN versus a nurse with their BSN. Either way, you know what I mean. However, you may not get the type of nursing job that you want with an associate's degree in nursing. So while doing my research for this video, I saw that there are some states in the United States that have actually considered passing a law to require hospital nurses to have their bachelor's degree in nursing and nothing less. So LPNs cannot be in the hospital and ADNs cannot be in the hospital. However, as of today that I'm filming this video, no official legislation has been passed anywhere in the US to make that a law in any state. So in my state, and I live in Maryland, I actually live in the DC metropolitan area, so I'm in Maryland, but I'm right outside of DC. I'm like in a DC suburb. But in my area, all of the hospitals that I know of are requiring nurses to have their BSN in order to work in the hospital. So there are hospitals that don't require you to have a BSN on your start date, but they may make a rule that you have to be actively enrolled in a bridge program. So you can come work for us if you have your associate's degree in nursing, but you must be enrolled in a bridge program and actively pursuing getting your bachelor's degree. Or there are other hospitals where they don't require you to be enrolled in a BSN program at the start of hire, but they say within 2 years you need to be enrolled in a full-time program. There's some type of stipulation. I personally don't know of any hospitals in my immediate area that are actively hiring nurses without their BSN and without the intention of getting a BSN. Literally all of the nurses that I know that are working at the hospital with ADNs have been grandfathered in. So my mother is a nurse. She's been a nurse her entire career since before I was born. And so I do know of nurses that she works with, and I just know of nurses in my family who do work at hospitals in the area, but they were grandfathered in. So they were nurses at their hospital years ago, like before I was born, over a couple decades ago, and these new rules are only applying to new hires. So a lot of the time when I do see nurses in hospitals, that's because they have been there for decades. And if they were to quit their job for any reason and try to return, they wouldn't be able to. And I'm not saying that that's right or that that's justified. I don't want to offend anybody in this video. For the record, I believe that if you are a registered nurse, it really shouldn't matter if you have your bachelor's degree or your associate's degree. However, I am seeing a shift, at least in my area. I'm seeing a shift where hospitals are doing as much as they can to kind of eliminate ADNs in the hospital setting. I do know that for long-term care, if you are interested in becoming an ADN and you don't even want to work in the hospital, you want to go to long-term care, I have worked at a long-term care facility. And I don't know if all long-term care facilities are like this. I could imagine that they're not. But at least at the long-term care facility that I worked at, although they did hire ADNs, ADNs were paid less and they could not be in leadership roles. So of course we had a director of nursing, an assistant director of nursing, we had a quality assurance nurse, we had unit managers or charge nurses. All of them needed to have their bachelor's degree in order to be in leadership. Now my area is just a super competitive, highly educated area. I don't think that with the nursing shortage and just all of the different areas in the United States, I'm pretty sure that most areas are not as strict as mine. I've seen a lot of people online saying that hospitals in their area don't care if nurses have a BSN or an ADN, they'll hire either. Both can be in leadership and there really are no restrictions. So really, if you are looking to enter a nursing program and you're struggling between getting your associate's degree and your bachelor's degree, I would say just kind of search jobs in your area and maybe look at proposed legislation to see what hospitals are doing and what nursing homes are doing and what different settings are doing. Because as of today, you may live in an area where hospitals don't care if you have your ADN or your BSN, but there could be lawmakers trying to pass laws to eradicate that. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you may have gotten your ADN and wish that you went ahead and got a BSN. So that's definitely something to look at. And if it really makes no difference in your area, then my personal opinion would be to go for your ADN because it's cheaper and you wouldn't have any restrictions on where you can work and what you can do. Okay, so I want this to be a very short and sweet video, so I'm gonna wrap up things here. In short, I think that whether you go for your associate's degree or your bachelor's degree, it really just depends on what you're looking to do with your degree. My advice would just be to know what you want and to do your research. If you maybe know that you don't need to be working in a hospital setting or you don't want to work in a hospital setting, or if you want to work in a hospital setting and you know that in your area it does not matter what type of degree you have as long as you are a registered nurse, my personal advice would just be to go to community college, get your associate's degree, and then maybe later if you want to do a bridge program. Bridge programs a lot of the time are 1 to 2 years, and doing community college to get an associate's degree and then doing a bridge program, many of which are online, usually is a lot cheaper than going to a traditional four-year university, especially when you're comparing private four-year universities like Chamberlain, which are close to $100,000 for a degree, for a bachelor's degree, which is really ridiculous. On the other hand, if you know that you want to work in the hospital, if you know that you live in an area where hospitals require you to have a minimum of your BSN, or if you know that in the future you may be interested in leadership, getting an advanced degree, sometimes even things as how competitive community colleges are in your area, all of those things are things to consider, and which would be good reasons to try and aim for a traditional four-year university. In my case, if you've seen my previous videos, then you already know that I do have other degrees. I have a master's degree in healthcare communication, and I have an unrelated bachelor's degree. So if I lived in an area where, in my opinion, it would have made sense for me to get an associate's degree, I 100% would have done that. However, I know that I want to work in the hospital. I know for a fact that I want to be in leadership. And I know that community colleges in my area are actually harder to get into and more competitive, really, than some of the four-year universities in my area. So all of that contributed to me ending up at Chamberlain, which I am happy about. And I know that it was the best decision for me and I don't regret it. However, overall, I don't think that it's the best decision for a lot of people. Chamberlain is definitely convenient for so many reasons, and four-year universities can potentially be convenient for so many reasons, but I don't think that you should count out getting an associate's degree if that's what you want to do, or if your financial situation warrants that to be your only possibility. I still think that that's a great option, and at the end of it, you will still become a registered nurse. That is it for me from this video. I really hope that once I edit it, it's not too long. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.